tell me, how does this work? Because, yeah, we know about Apple Watches and things out there, but your differentiator is having more sensors and monitoring more things. How do you monitor for COVID-19 symptoms?
Yeah, so we build wearable technology. You can see it here on my wrist. Lightweight sensor. It's designed to measure everything about your body, metrics like sleep and recovery and strain. And more recently, and most importantly, we've been measuring a statistic called respiratory rate. And respiratory rate is really important because we've seen that an elevated respiratory rate can be a predictor of COVID-19. Respiratory rate is typically a very boring statistic. If you look at a year's worth of my data, every single day you'll see the same number of breaths per minute. That's respiratory rate. And we measure it while you're sleeping. And yet what we've seen, and we've done a lot of research on this, John, what we've seen is that when someone gets COVID-19, as early as 3 days before feeling symptoms, they'll have a dramatically elevated respiratory rate, and it just jumps off the screen, 14 every day, and then boom, and 18.
That's interesting. Now, does that also work? And I don't know if you know this from the data yet, for people who continue to be asymptomatic otherwise, or does that tend to just happen for people who eventually, say 3 days later, do show symptoms?
Yeah, absolutely. So the powerful thing is this shows up for people who are asymptomatic as well. And you mentioned the PGA Tour. Nick Watney, a professional golfer on the PGA Tour, tested negative for COVID-19. 2 days later, he wakes up with this dramatically elevated respiratory rate on Whoop. So his baseline was a 14. All of a sudden, one day he wakes up with an 18. He knows something's up. He feels no symptoms. And he goes and he gets a test, a COVID-19 test, and he tests positive. And if he hadn't seen that elevation in his respiratory rate, he would have been playing all weekend with the best players in the world. So the PGA Tour learned of this experience, learned of this story, and took decisive action to roll Whoop out to every player, caddy, administrator, staff, media, you name it.
Well, as we talk about opening up, there are lots of different venues that could potentially take advantage of something like this. But I wonder, what's the false negative rate effectively? I mean, how many times does somebody not have an increased respiratory rate but end up coming down with COVID-19, even if they are asymptomatic? Is there a way of knowing that?
So we've been studying this since early March. We partnered with CQU in collaboration with Cleveland Clinic. We collected about 2,000 data points on this, and we've since submitted research that includes 271 participants. And what we found is that the respiratory rate indicator caught 20% of cases 2 days before symptoms. So that's really powerful because that's going to profoundly prevent the spread. And it caught 80% of cases by the third day of symptoms. So that gives you a sense for the accuracy of this. I mean, I don't want to overstate, there needs to be a number of solutions in place. But what we've seen is that Whoop and measuring respiratory rate in particular can be part of that solution.
And then quickly, if you can, how broadly cost-wise could this be rolled out? Could companies adopt this to determine when it's safe for people to come back to work or to try to catch symptoms early?
So we are working right now on a back-to-work business unit that's leveraging the Whoop technology to help corporations go back to work. I can tell you right now, we've already got about 5 corporations signed up for this. It's moving quickly. And look, we want to do everything we can to help. I mean, I think at the end of the day, everyone should be fighting together to beat this virus.
Well, Will Ahmed, very interesting. CEO and founder of Whoop, sports technology, able to detect potentially early signs of COVID-19.